abdominal athenerosis, all of it together. So remember when we talk about the rectus sheath, we're talking about the specific part of fascia that's like covering over where the actual rectus abdominis are. So inside there we'd see like the tendinous intersections of the rectus abdominis, through that pyramidalis, which we'll see in a minute. So the rectus sheath is only covering this, but all of it together is the athenerosis. We're not really going to see this specifically on the cadaver table, but if we draw a line right down the middle, remember that is our linea semilunaris. We go a little bit deeper to where we actually see the rectus abdominis. We can see that there's another line in that same area on the lateral aspect. That is the linea semilunaris.
So the middle one's linea alba?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so remember that in the middle, linea alpha, the lateral border is the linea semilunaris. And I will say we're typically gonna see it better in the model. So normally that's where I test it from, because I don't like drawing on this. But if I draw it, I have to lock the table, and then you can't move it. So again, if I move the table, you see the drawing stays put. So it kind of messes things up. So I don't do that. So if we look here, we can see the orientation of these muscle fibers going in this direction. Those are the external obliques. And if we look on the other side, we can see that these muscle fibers are sort of going the other way. You can't see it as well as we did on the model, but they're moving this way. And those are the internal obliques. Okay? So external this way, internal is going the opposite direction. Right? As we go another layer deep, we can then see the rectus abdominis, and we can pretty clearly see that arcuate line. So if you look right there, this line of tissue, this represents where the internal oblique and the transverse abdominis are no longer contributing to a posterior layer of fascia, and instead is going in front. So that line itself right there, that's the arcuate line. Okay, everybody good with that? Now, if we look just beside the rectus abdominis muscles, we can see the transverse abdominis muscles. And don't forget that transverse abdominis muscle is actually pretty large, as well as are the internal obliques and external obliques. They go all the way up here. So they're all the way up there on the ribs. We continue looking around the back side, and we get rid of that latissimus dorsi. We can see how it's going all the way back. And again, that internal and external obliques would be covering in that same area. Everybody okay with the abdominal muscles? Are you guys okay with the fascia, the abdominal athenerosis versus the rectus sheath? We don't really see the rectus sheath on this. I mean, technically we do. It's a specific part of fascia, but not really. If we look in between, we can see the tendinous intersection of the rectus abdominis, right through there. Okay. Now remember, we're not gonna see the umbilical folds. Remember, we would have to take just the anterior portion of the abdomen, flip it over, and we can't do that, so you don't really see it. What you can see though, is that inferior epigastric artery and vein. And you can see how it's gonna go up and it's gonna connect here with the superior epigastric artery and vein. Now the inferior is not on your list, but remember that is what travels in that lateral umbilical fold. But we're not gonna actually see the folds themselves. As I remove this tissue, we come to the superficial structure covering the viscera or the abdominal contents themselves. And remember, that is the greater omentum. We said that the greater omentum was attached to the greater curvature of the stomach. So if we highlight the stomach right there, along the greater curvature of the stomach, you see the greater omentum. Now, if we get rid of the liver, now see the lesser curvature of the stomach, and remember we said associated with the lesser curvature of the stomach, we were gonna see the lesser omentum, which is right there. Now remember, we said we won't see that on the model. So we can only test the lesser omentum on the anatomized paper. Let me know if I'm going too fast, I'll slow down, if you guys are taking minutes. Now, here we see something hanging off the liver. So this big structure right through here is our liver. Okay? And we can see that there's something hanging down off of it. Rather, it's actually something connecting into the liver. This is the ligamentum teres hepatis on your list. It could also be called the round ligament of the liver. But remember, if you were to call it the round ligament of the liver, you would have to specifically say of the liver, because there's also a round ligament of the uterus. Sorry, I had to get my teeth. Now, the piece of tissue that's separating out the left and right lobe of the liver is the falciform ligament. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get rid of everything. And then we're going to add the liver back.